product or a piece of intellectual property can be taken from the academic environment and commercialized. And that's a very interesting process. You'll learn about patents. You'll learn about all of the legal implications of this process. This will give you some very valuable knowledge and experience then as you start to apply for a consulting position. And finally, I remind you just to make the most of your PhD and postdoc program experiences. To make your application really attractive to consulting firms, you need to show that you've done things over and above the normal PhD and postdoc experience. And we all know that everyone has to publish, everyone has to present, and everyone has to mentor students and folks under them in the lab. So you need to figure out how to make yourself stand apart as being a leader, as being an organizer, as being a business-minded and creative entrepreneurial person. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move into tips and tricks for the resume and cover letters. Networking is the next topic we'll discuss. And networking is really all about meeting other people who are either interested in consulting with you, so you can really join forces and work with them and learn from each other and practice for the interviews together, but also learning about people who are out there and connecting with people who are currently in the industry and who have already gone through the process and successfully been able to land a job in this industry. The first thing I suggest is to make friends and advocates in the consulting industry. And it's very important in the business world. It's unfortunate, but it's true. It's not always what you know, but it's who you know. And forming an internal advocate at firms that you are very interested in joining can be extremely valuable then when you start to go through the application process. You'll learn that within firms, they often have a referral opportunity for current employees. And if you are able to work with them, now granted, this employee will probably not work with you if they've never met you before and know nothing about you, but hopefully you're able to form a relationship with someone at one of these firms and then have them help you navigate the application process and have them actually refer you. I can't stress how important it is to make those relationships and make sure that they transcend beyond just random emails and someone that you met at an information session. It's often helpful to really build a relationship and a friendship with this person so they are willing to invest some time and to help you land a position at their firm. A way that you can identify some of these potential people and already have a common ground with them is to work with your school's alumni network. And I know at the University of Pennsylvania we had a very extensive network, and I would imagine that Columbia has one as well. And if you work with your career center, you may be able to identify people who have gone through a similar program to yours and now are at a consulting firm that you may be interested in working with. I know I'm very interested in helping fellow alums from PhD programs at Penn, and hopefully you'll find someone who can help you as well. Secondly, it's important to attend the on-campus informational presentations and events that are offered by consulting firms. You'll often find the big firms such as McKinsey and BCG and Deloitte does them as well. So come to campus and give an overview of the work that they do and their application process and next steps that you can do if you're interested in applying to work there. And oftentimes those informational presentations will be staffed by several current consultants, and it's really great to get to know those people, get their business cards, and follow up with them. Now keep in mind that following these informational presentations, those handful of consultants will often be just bombarded with people wanting to talk to them and get their questions answered. So you may not get a lot of time with that person. So that's why it's important to get some contact information and be able to follow up with them at a later date. Another option, and this has been very helpful for me, is to create and maintain a well-written LinkedIn profile. And as you may know, LinkedIn is kind of like a Facebook, but it's just for professionals. It's a way that you can display an online resume for yourself and then connect with people, similar to like on Facebook, where you actually reach out to people and ask them to be a connection of yours on LinkedIn, and they can do the same for you. This is a great way to connect with people from Columbia there, from firms that you're interested in applying for, other people with similar experience. And it's really great to have a good profile of yourself that displays all of your skills, experiences, education, so people know where you're coming from and what you're interested in doing. And finally, I challenge you to be proactive, because the unfortunate truth is these firms get a lot of people interested in them, and they're probably not going to come looking for you. So you need to reach out, show your interest, do your homework, and find people who can help you navigate the application process at the firm you're interested in. Resumes and cover letters. You'll find that you'll need to spend a lot of time getting a good resume together for a consulting job. And the first tip I have on here is that you need to convert your CV into a 1 to 2 page business resume that really highlights your leadership and business accomplishments. And I imagine everyone out there has a very lengthy CV from all of their graduate and postdoc experiences. But the unfortunate truth is all of that language on your CV will be largely unintelligible to people who are reviewing your application materials at a consulting firm. Most of the folks who are in recruiting within consulting firms are not scientists, and they're not going to understand or, frankly, probably even care what the titles of your papers and presentations were. So what you need to do is take the soft skills that you've learned from doing all of those things. From writing papers, you obviously have learned communication skills. From giving presentations, you've learned how to speak in public, you've learned how to network, you've learned how to display and explain your ideas, which are very complicated, and distill them down to very simple terms. You need to pull out all of these skills that you've learned from being a PhD and a postdoc and put them onto your resume for a consulting firm. That's what they'll be interested in learning about. I always tell people that the second page of your business resume can be used to list out publications and key conferences that you spoke at, things like that. But leave that as a page that if the recruiter's not interested in those things, then they can just go right past that page. But the important information will be on page 1 of your resume, listing out your experiences, your leadership and business accomplishments. So all of those organizations that you ran, those startup biotechs that you did some work for, all of the other leadership opportunities that you had within your school or within other outside extracurricular activities, all of that will be on that business resume, and along with your education. And I also recommend that people, if you have the space, put something interesting about yourself on there too. Some of the other interests and activities that you have. If you, for instance, volunteer at an animal shelter, or you're very active in a particular church group, or the Big Brothers Big Sisters, something like that. Those little anecdotes about yourself can be very valuable when going through the recruiting process, because it allows you to connect with your recruiters and with your interviewers. I love looking at people's resumes and finding something that I have in common with them and helping to break the ice within the first couple of minutes of the interview. So I highly recommend, if you have the space, certainly don't sacrifice a very valuable educational or business accomplishment to put these things on there. But if you have the space, it's really great to add a line about your other interests. I mentioned this on an earlier slide, but to the second point on this slide, it's really important to point out how you're different from the normal PhD and postdoc. As I said, it's an expectation that we present. It's an expectation that we publish. But what else have you done? What leadership roles have you had? What makes you stand apart? That makes you not the typical scientist. The unfortunate truth is that there is a stereotype about scientists and what their skill sets are. And it's true that not every scientist is cut out to be in the business world. So you need to display on your resume and your cover letter how you're different and how you're a good fit for this firm. In talking about cover letters, the third point is I recommend that you create a unique cover letter for each consulting firm that you're applying to. You need to show that you've done your homework around that particular firm. So within the firm, for instance, Deloitte, I had to say that I wanted to work within strategy and operations because I want to help businesses grow and improve over the long haul and help them implement their changes. And within that, I specifically wanted to focus on life sciences because of my PhD background and my background at working in another consulting firm. I called out specifically why I was a good fit for this firm and why I was excited about working for them. A generic cover letter will be very easy for a recruiter to spot. So please don't write a cover letter where all you do is change the names of the firms and then sign it. That's probably not going to be effective. I can't stress enough how important it is to ask other people to review your materials. It's helpful to work with your career center, with current consultants, and as I mentioned before within the networking conversation, getting people at your level, your peers who are also interested in a career in consulting to review your materials can be extremely valuable. You need other people's insights and have them look at this and say, what stands out to you on this resume? Does this make me sound like a good fit for this firm? Plus, though, of course, catch typos and formatting errors and things like that for you, too, because you want this to be as perfect of a document as it possibly can when it reaches a recruiter's hands. And finally, revise, revise, revise. Don't write your resume the day before your application is due. You're going to need time to revise and reiterate and review it. And don't get frustrated. It can take, I know it probably took me a month to get my first really good consulting resume together from my CV. It just takes a long time to brainstorm about what your strong points are, what your skills are, and get them all on paper and then arrange them in an order that's appropriate. And you always want to just put down as much as you possibly can. It's easier to delete items and move things around on the page than to have to start from scratch and come up with more content. Moving on to interview tips, and this is something I get a lot of questions about from people who are interested in pursuing a career in consulting, because the truth of the matter is once your resume and cover letter move to the next level, that resume and cover letter will get the recruiter's attention and get the firm interested in talking to you. But what really, really makes or breaks you in landing that position is succeeding in the interview. Consulting interviews usually consist of multiple rounds. Usually they start as simple phone interviews or interviews done there on campus at Columbia. And then you'll progress into the next rounds. And they tend to get a little bit more probing in terms of getting to know you as a person and making sure you're the right fit for the firm. But also they'll keep testing your business acumen and your creativity and thinking skills as you move ahead in the interview process. So I challenge you to really educate yourself on the types of interviews that consulting firms will use. And they primarily use what are called behavioral and case interviews. Behavioral interviews are the typical getting to know you. So tell me 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses. Or tell me about a time when you had to serve as a leader of a group that wasn't doing well and had serious problems. Or tell me a time when you had to work in a team and how you were able to interact with the leadership of that team and the folks who were below you within that team. I also had some very creative questions such as, can you teach me something? And so when you're sitting across from the interviewer, you have to immediately on the spot